Welcome to today's deep dive. It is March 1st, 2026, and if you are currently prepping for your RBT exam, or maybe you're a new clinician wanting to build some confidence on the floor, you are in exactly the right place.
Absolutely.
Today we are opening up a really comprehensive study guide and tackling Section C of the RBT Task List. That's skill acquisition and teaching procedures.
A heavy hitter.
Yeah, the real core of the job. Our mission today is to be your shortcut to feeling well-informed and fully prepared. We're going to break down the exact teaching procedures you'll use every single day, complete with step-by-step clinical applications.
And we're jumping into this material as two clinicians having a structured, professional, but hopefully pretty engaging conversation designed entirely around your success.
Right.
Whether you're a candidate sweating over the upcoming exam, a brand new tech, or a bilingual student who just needs these really dense concepts translated into clear, everyday language, we've got you covered.
We do. But before we even get to the teaching strategies, we really need to draw a clear line in the sand.
Oh, yes, the scope of practice.
Exactly. Regarding the professional scope of a registered behavior technician, as an RBT, your role is to implement programs written by the BCBA, that's the Board Certified Behavior Analyst.
You do not design the programs independently.
Never.
You collect and report accurate data, and you follow the prompting and reinforcement plans exactly as they are written. I like to think of it as you are the engine driving the daily progress, but the BCBA is the architect drawing the blueprint.
That is a crucial distinction to keep in mind, especially when you're out there in the field. So let's talk about the fuel for that engine. We need to start with the concept of reinforcement.
The absolute foundation.
Right, because it's the foundation of all skill acquisition. And I think there's a huge misconception out there. People often assume that just saying good job or, handing a kid a sticker is automatically reinforcement.
Right, but it's not. The core rule of applied behavior analysis is that a consequence is only a reinforcer if the behavior actually increases in the future.
That's one of the most common stumbling blocks for new clinicians.
It really is. I mean, if you give a learner a sticker for finishing a puzzle, but the next day they flat out refuse to do the puzzle, that sticker was not a reinforcer.
It was literally just a sticker.
Exactly. And the terminology here trips people up too. Specifically, the terms positive and negative reinforcement.
Oh yeah, because in everyday life, positive means good and negative means bad.
Right. But in behavioral science, positive just means you're adding a stimulus after the behavior occurs. For instance, a client appropriately asks for bubbles, and you add bubbles to their environment by blowing them. The behavior of asking goes up.
So following that logic, negative reinforcement doesn't mean something bad is happening.
Not at all.
It just means you're subtracting or removing something. Like, let's say a learner is feeling really overwhelmed by a difficult math worksheet.
We've all been there.
Right. So they use their communication device to ask for a break. You immediately remove the difficult worksheet.
Yeah.
You took away an aversive condition. And because of that, the learner is more likely to use their device to ask for a break tomorrow.
The behavior still goes up.
You hit the nail on the head. In both positive and negative reinforcement, the target behavior increases.
Where clinicians get trapped is confusing negative reinforcement with punishment. Remember, reinforcement builds behavior up. Punishment pushes behavior down.
It's all about the future trajectory of the behavior.
Exactly. If a behavior is decreasing, you're looking at punishment regardless of whether you added or removed something.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second here, because I see this happen all the time in real life.
Okay, lay it on me.
Let's say a child is having a massive meltdown in the middle of a grocery store, throwing things, crying, screaming. The parent, who is completely exhausted, hands the child a candy bar just to get them to stop.
Classic scenario.
The child stops crying. Is that reinforcement?
Well, what you're describing is bribery, and it's fundamentally different from how we use reinforcement in skill acquisition.
How so?
Bribery happens reactively after a problem behavior has already started in order to stop it.
Yeah.
The parent is essentially negotiating with the problem behavior.
Ah.
In a clinical setting, reinforcement is arranged proactively in advance. You set the contingency. First, calm hands, then we earn the iPad.
So if you wait for a learner to start throwing items and then offer the iPad to calm them down,
you aren't teaching a new skill. You are accidentally reinforcing the throwing.
that makes perfect sense. Reinforcement is proactive, bribery is reactive.
Exactly.
So, assuming we have our proactive reinforcement set up, how often are we supposed to deliver it? The study guide throws a massive alphabet soup at us here.
Oh, the schedules of reinforcement.
Yeah. CRF, FR, VR, FI, HAKES. Can we decode these a bit?
Let's translate those acronyms. CRF stands for continuous reinforcement. This means every single time the learner performs the target behavior, they get reinforced.
So like for a brand new skill.
Right. If you're learning a brand new skill like identifying the color red, you reinforce every single correct answer.
Real life doesn't work on a continuous schedule.
It definitely doesn't. You don't get a paycheck every single time you send an email at work.
I wish.
Right. So once a skill is learned, we move to intermittent schedules to actually maintain it.
And that's where the other 4 acronyms come in. Ratio versus interval, and fixed versus variable.
Exactly. Ratio simply means we're counting the number of responses. Interval means we're looking at the passage of time.
Okay.
Fixed means the requirement is set and predictable, while variable means it's an average, which makes it unpredictable.
So an FR schedule fixed ratio might mean the learner gets a token after exactly every 3 correct answers.
Right. And a VR, or variable ratio schedule, means they get a token after an average of 3 correct answers. Sometimes it takes 1, sometimes it takes 5.
The slot machine effect.
Yes.
You never know exactly when the payout is coming, which keeps you responding. That variable ratio schedule is incredibly powerful for keeping behavior strong over time.
It's the most resistant to extinction, as we say in the field.
Now, before we move on to how we actually structure our teaching, we need to touch on the types of reinforcers we use. Unconditioned versus conditioned.
Okay, so unconditioned reinforcers are things that humans naturally want without any prior learning. They're tied to our basic biology and survival. Food, water, warmth, sleep.
But we can't just walk around using goldfish crackers to teach every single skill.
No, we really can't. Aside from the fact that it isn't natural in a classroom or a workplace, the learner will eventually get full.
Satiation.
Right, this is called satiation. If they're satiated, the goldfish cracker loses all its value and the learning just stops.
So we have to create new reinforcers. We have to teach them to value other things like high fives, praise, or tokens.
And that is where the pairing procedure comes in. We take a neutral stimulus, something the learner currently doesn't care about, like a plastic token, and we repeatedly deliver it alongside a powerful, unconditioned reinforcer.
And over time, that token acquires the reinforcing properties of the food.
It becomes a conditioned reinforcer. This is exactly why pairing yourself with fun and reinforcement is the very first thing you do when you start working with a new client.
You literally need to become a conditioned reinforcer yourself.
Exactly.
Now that we have the foundation of reinforcement, let's talk about the actual teaching environment. Section C highlights 2 major pillars of teaching: discrete trial teaching, or DTT, and natural environment teaching, which is NET.
Let's start with DTT.
When I read the definition, it sounds very rigid.
It is highly structured by design. Discrete trial teaching is adult-led. It breaks complex skills down into small, clear, distinct learning trials.
And the structure always follows a specific loop, right?
Yes. First, you have the antecedent, which we refer to as the SD. Then you have the behavior, or the response. Then the consequence. And finally, an intertrial interval.
Let's pause right there, because that acronym, SD, is everywhere in this field. What does it actually mean in plain English?
SD stands for discriminative stimulus. In everyday terms, it's the instruction or the environmental cue that tells the learner, hey, if you do this specific behavior right now, reinforcement is available.
Got it. So if I'm running a DTT session to teach a learner to identify animals, my SD is me saying, touch the dog. The response is the learner reaching out and touching the picture of the dog. The consequence is me saying, awesome job finding the dog, and handing them a token.
That's a perfect DTT trial.
But what about that last part, the intertrial interval? Why does a pause matter?
The intertrial interval, which is usually just 2 to 3 seconds, serves a very practical purpose. It's a clear boundary that shows the current trial has ended and a new one is about to begin.
It resets the board.
Exactly. And more importantly, it's the brief window where you, the RBT, record your data. DTT moves quickly, and if you don't take your data during that pause, you will lose track of whether the response was independent or prompted.
So that's DTT, adult-led, highly structured, often done at a table using distinct trials.
Right.
But we can't expect a learner to sit at a table all day. How does natural environment teaching, or NET, differ from DTT?
NET flips the script. Instead of the adult leading the session and choosing the materials, NET is child-led.
Okay.
It's embedded into everyday activities and play, and it relies on natural reinforcers rather than artificial ones like tokens.
Let's run a scenario. Let's say you're working on conversation skills.
Sure. In a DTT format, you might hold up a flashcard and say, what do you say when a friend walks in?
Right.
In NET, You wait until you and the learner are playing with blocks, and another child actually walks into the room. You prompt the learner to say hello in the moment.
And the reinforcement isn't a token.
Exactly. The natural reinforcement is the actual social interaction they get from their peer.
Or, to use a really common early learner scenario, incidental teaching with bubbles.
I love the bubbles example.
The learner sees the bottle of bubbles on a high shelf and reaches for it. That initiation is your cue. You step in and provide the SD, say bubbles,
The child attempts the word.
and the natural consequence is that you blow the bubbles. You didn't invent an arbitrary reward. The reward is the activity itself.
Exactly.
But I imagine data collection in net can feel a bit chaotic compared to the clean structure of DTT.
It definitely requires more fluidity. You aren't checking off 20 trials in rapid succession. You might be tracking how many times the learner spontaneously initiates a request over a 2-hour play session.
You have to capture it on the fly.
You have to capture the data in the moment naturally without disrupting the flow of the interaction. Both DTT and net are essential, though.
They work together.
Right. DTT builds the foundational skill through repetition, while net ensures the skill actually generalizes to the messy, real world.
Speaking of messy, let's pivot to what happens when the learner just isn't getting it.
Error correction and prompting.
Yes. We've set up the DTT session, we deliver the SD, touch the dog, and the learner just stares at us or reaches for the wrong card. How do we help them succeed without just giving them the answer?
This is where prompting comes in. A prompt is essentially an extra hint or a temporary bridge to help the learner get to the correct answer.
And there are two main categories you need to know, right?
Yes. Response prompts and stimulus prompts. Response prompts act directly on the learner.
Like what?
This includes a full physical prompt where you guide their hand, a model prompt where you show them what to do, a gestural prompt where you point, or a verbal prompt where you tell them the answer.
And stimulus prompts act on the materials themselves.
Correct.
Like if I'm teaching a learner to identify the color red, I might make the red card twice as big as the blue card, or put the red card much closer to them. I'm altering the environment to make the right answer obvious.
Exactly.
But obviously, we don't want to leave those bridges up forever. We want the learner to be independent.
Which leads us to prompt fading. A common point of confusion on the exam is the difference between a prompt hierarchy and prompt fading.
Oh, that's a good one to clarify.
The hierarchy is just the order of the help from most intrusive, like physical guidance, to least intrusive, like a subtle glance.
So it's just the list of tools.
Right. Prompt fading is the actual systematic process of removing that help so the learner doesn't become reliant on you. This process is known as transferring stimulus control.
We want their behavior to be controlled by the natural SD, not by our extra hints.
Exactly.
What does that fading process actually look like in a session?
There are a few major strategies. First, we have errorless learning, which typically uses a most a least fading approach.
Starting with heavy help.
Right. If a skill is brand new, we don't want the learner practicing mistakes. So, immediately after giving the SD, we provide a heavy prompt, like a physical guide, to ensure they get it right.
And then over consecutive trials, we fade that help down to a model, then a gesture, then independence.
Exactly.
What if the skill isn't brand new, but they're just struggling on a particular day?
Then we might use a least to most approach. You give the SD and wait. You give them a chance to respond independently.
And if they don't?
If they don't, you provide the minimum amount of help needed, maybe just a gesture. If they still don't get it, you scale up the help to a model.
Okay. And there's also time delay, right?
Yes. Time delay is where you gradually increase the pause between your instruction and your prompt. You might start with a 0-second delay, prompting immediately. Then you wait 3 seconds before prompting, giving their brain a window to process and respond on its own.
So what happens if we give the SD, we provide a prompt, and they still make an error? Do we just say, no, that's wrong, and move on?
This is a critical area for professional boundaries. Error correction is not punishment.
Say that again for the people in the back.
Error correction is not punishment. If a learner makes a mistake, your response should be completely neutral. You don't scold them or show frustration. An error correction procedure is about teaching, not reprimanding.
How does a common procedure look?
A common procedure is to simply represent the SD, immediately prompt the correct response so they see what it should be, and then move on without providing the high-level reinforcement.
So they still get feedback, but not the big reward.
Right. You might give neutral praise for complying with the prompt, but you save the big reinforcers for independent, correct answers.
That neutrality is so important. Now, let's talk about building more complex behaviors. Section C outlines task analysis, chaining, and shaping.
Oh, the exam traps.
I know from talking to RBTs that chaining and shaping get confused constantly on the exam. Let's separate them clearly. What is the difference?
Let's start with task analysis and chaining. This is what you use when you're teaching a multi-step sequence of behaviors. Think about making a sandwich, brushing your teeth, or washing your hands.
You can't just tell a learner, wash your hands, and expect them to know the 15 microsteps involved.
Exactly. So the BCBA creates a task analysis, a literal written list, breaking the complex skill down into single teachable steps. Chaining is how we teach those steps.
And there are three main types of chaining: forward, backward, and total task. Let's walk through a scenario using hand washing.
In forward chaining, you teach the very first step of the sequence. The learner turns on the water, you reinforce that heavily. Then you, the RBT, physically prompt them through the rest of the steps so the task is completed.
And once they master step 1,
You require them to do step 1 and step 2 before they get reinforced. You build the chain from the beginning.
backward chaining sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually amazing.
Yeah.
How does that work for hand washing?
In backward chaining, you do the opposite. Let's say hand washing has 5 steps. You, the clinician, prompt the learner through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. You stop at the final step, drying hands with a towel. You teach that step.
And the psychological advantage there is huge.
It really is. The incredible advantage of backward chaining is that the learner always finishes the task. They get to contact the natural reinforcement of completion immediately.
Once they master drying their hands, you step back and require them to turn off the water and dry their hands.
Exactly.
And total task chaining means you just prompt the learner through every single step of the sequence, every single time, usually because they already know most of the steps, but just need help stringing them together smoothly.
You've got it.
So chaining is linking a bunch of different behaviors together into a routine. How does that contrast with shaping?
Shaping has nothing to do with sequences or routines. Shaping is about changing the form or quality of a single individual behavior.
Just one behavior.
Just one. We use shaping by reinforcing successive approximations of a target behavior.
Could you give us an example of shaping a single behavior?
Absolutely. Let's say we are trying to teach a learner to use their vocal words to ask for help. Currently, when they can't open a toy, they just grunt or cry.
We can't expect them to perfectly articulate "help please" on day 1.
No, so we shape it. First, we reinforce any non-crying vocal sound they make when they are stuck. If they say, we open the toy, we do that until it's consistent.
Then we raise the bar.
Right, we stop reinforcing we only reinforce if they make an H sound, like huh. Once they master that, we raise the bar again to hep. Finally, we only provide reinforcement for the full word help.
You're molding one behavior step by step, withholding reinforcement for older, lower quality attempts.
That's shaping in a nutshell.
Shaping is molding one behavior. Chaining is linking multiple behaviors. That makes it so much clearer.
It really is a key distinction.
All right, as we head toward the end of the study guide material, we need to talk about fine-tuning these skills. We have discrimination training, generalization, and maintenance.
The final polish.
How does a learner know when to actually use the skills we just spent weeks teaching them?
That's exactly what discrimination training addresses. Discrimination is simply the ability to tell the difference between 2 or more stimuli and respond correctly.
Let's go back to the term we defined earlier, the SD, or discriminative stimulus.
We want the learner to respond to the SD because that signals reinforcement. But there's another term here, the S delta. The S delta is any stimulus that signals reinforcement is not available.
So if I place a picture of an apple and a picture of a banana on the desk, and I say touch the apple, the picture of the apple is the SD. Touching it gets a reward.
And the picture of the banana is the S delta. Touching it gets nothing.
You're teaching the learner to discriminate between the two.
Precisely. And once they can do that in the clinic, we face the ultimate test, generalization.
A skill is absolutely useless if the learner can only perform it at a clinical table with one specific RBT, using one specific set of flashcards.
Generalization ensures the skill transfers to the real world. We need to generalize across people. They should respond to their parents and teachers, not just you.
Across settings, they should use the skill at the grocery store, not just in the therapy room.
And across stimuli, they should recognize a real dog in the park, a cartoon dog on TV, and a photograph of a dog, not just the one flashcard used in DTT.
Once a skill is successfully generalized, it moves from acquisition to maintenance. What is the practical difference for an RBT running a session?
When a skill is in acquisition, you're doing the heavy lifting. You're running frequent trials, providing lots of prompts, using continuous reinforcement, and collecting detailed trial-by-trial data. The skill is actively being learned.
And maintenance.
Maintenance means the skill is already mastered. You don't need to run it 20 times a day anymore. You're simply doing occasional probes, maybe once a week, to ensure the behavior hasn't been forgotten. You use natural reinforcement, and there is little to no prompting involved.
We have unpacked a tremendous amount of information today, from the mechanics of reinforcement all the way to maintaining skills in the real world.
It's a dense section, but it's so fundamental.
Let's bring this all together with 5 rapid-fire Section C exam reminders for everyone listening. Number 1. Reinforcement always increases behavior, while punishment decreases it. Positive means adding a stimulus. Negative means removing an aversive stimulus.
Number 2. DTT is highly structured, adult-led, and uses distinct trials. NET is embedded in natural routines, child-led, and relies on natural reinforcers.
Number 3. Chaining puts together a sequence of multiple steps to form a routine, while shaping improves a single behavior through successive approximations.
Number 4. An S-delta is an environment or cue that indicates reinforcement is not available for a specific response.
And number 5. As an RBT, your professional scope is to implement programs exactly as the BCBA has written them. You do not design the programs or change the criteria on your own.
Which brings us to a vital summary of your professional responsibility.
Let's hear it.
The ultimate goal of skill acquisition isn't just to get perfect data on your clipboard. The goal is to build skills that genuinely improve the learner's real-life independence. Everything we discussed today, fading prompts, teaching in the natural environment, generalizing skills, is designed to maintain the learner's dignity, respect their assent, and help them navigate their world more successfully.
That is beautifully said. It's about the human being, not just the data points. And before we go, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, especially regarding prompt fading.
Oh, this is a good one.
If reinforcement relies entirely on what increases behavior, consider how often our own daily habits as well-meaning clinicians might accidentally shape the very prompt dependency in our learners that we are working so hard to fade.
It happens all the time.
The next time you reach out to point to a card or jump in to finish a word for a client before they can struggle through it, ask yourself, am I prompting right now because they actually need the help to succeed? Or am I prompting because I am personally uncomfortable with the silence?
That is a phenomenal question to reflect on before your next session.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Section C. Keep studying hard, trust your training, and we will catch you on the next one.